I didn't think my apartment would turn into a reality show set. But here we are, 3 months later, with an unexpected third contestant, and he wasn't even on the lease. When Emily and I signed the lease last year, we weren't best friends, but we clicked well enough. She was neat, paid rent on time, and seemed respectful. We met through a mutual friend who swore she was low drama. And honestly, for the first few months, she was exactly that. We had our routines. I worked early shifts at the bookstore downtown. She worked late at a restaurant. We'd pass each other like ships in the night, occasionally having wine on the couch on Sundays. It was comfortable, and I thought we'd make it the whole year without major issues. Then in February, she told me her boyfriend, Tyler, was coming to spend the weekend. I didn't think much of it. I'd met him once before, tall, loud laugh, the kind of guy who wears baseball caps indoors, but he seemed fine. The weekend came and went. Tyler stayed. At first, it was little things. I'd wake up and find him in the kitchen making eggs, shirtless, blasting music on his phone. Sometimes he'd be in the living room late at night playing video games with his headset, swearing loudly. His stuff started showing up too, a second toothbrush in the bathroom, a stack of sneakers by the door. By the second week, I realized I hadn't had a single morning where the kitchen was free. He was always there, sprawled on the couch, or taking long showers that killed our hot water. I didn't say anything right away because, well, I didn't want to be that roommate. But then my grocery bill doubled. Things I bought, eggs, bread, coffee, kept disappearing. Our water and electric bill spiked. And Tyler? Still not on the lease. I finally asked Emily, "So, is Tyler staying here now?" She laughed and said, "Oh my gosh, no. He's just between places right now, but it's temporary. Don't worry." But temporary turned into month 2. By then, Tyler had basically claimed our living room as his office. He worked remote, still not sure what that actually meant, but seemed to spend most of his day gaming. His packages arrived at our address. His mail started coming in. He even rearranged the living room furniture without asking. The final straw for me that month. I came home to find him using my blanket, barefoot on the couch, eating the last of my takeout from the fridge. I went straight to Emily's room and knocked. She opened the door, already on her phone, and looked annoyed. "Hey, can we talk about Tyler?" I asked. She sighed like I was about to waste her time. "What about him?" And that was the first time I realized. She wasn't just ignoring the situation. She fully intended for him to be there, rent-free, indefinitely. And she wasn't going to ask me. That night after work, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation, or rather, the lack of one. Emily acted like I was the unreasonable one for even bringing it up. I tried to be fair. I told myself, maybe it really is temporary. Maybe Tyler just needs another week. But the next morning, I was jolted awake at 6:30 a.m. by the sound of Tyler singing in the shower. My towel rack now holding his towel, his body wash on the shelf next to mine. By the time I got to the kitchen, he had taken over the counter, making a giant breakfast spread, scrambled eggs, toast, bacon, pancakes. Not one plate for me. The smell just taunted me as I rushed to make my coffee. "Morning, roomie," he said with a grin, like we were buddies. I muttered, "I'm not your roommate." But he didn't hear me over the sizzling pan. It wasn't just him being here, it was how comfortable he was. Like he belonged. Like the apartment was his just as much as mine. When I brought it up again to Emily that night, she brushed me off. "I told you, it's temporary," she said without looking up from her phone. "Emily, it's been over a month." "Yeah, but he doesn't have anywhere else to go right now. You wouldn't want him to be homeless, right?" The guilt trip stung, but what really got me was how she made it sound like my responsibility to house her boyfriend. I tried setting some boundaries. I told her he couldn't eat my groceries, and that he needed to start contributing to bills if he was going to be here. She nodded and said, "Yeah, I'll talk to him." 2 weeks later, nothing had changed. In fact, it got worse. Now Tyler had started inviting his friends over. I'd come home to find 3 random guys playing video games in the living room. Empty soda, cans all over the coffee table. One time, they used my baking sheet for nachos and left it in the sink for 2 days. Then came the night that really pushed me toward the edge. I'd worked a long shift, came home around 10:30 p.m. and found my bedroom door slightly open. That was weird. I always kept it shut. Inside, Tyler was rummaging around, looking for a phone charger. I froze. "What are you doing in my room?" "Oh, Emily said I could borrow a charger." She said yours would work with my phone. I just stared at him. Get out. He laughed like I was overreacting, but eventually left. My skin was crawling. My space was no longer my space. The next morning, I told Emily, this isn't working. Tyler has to go. Her face hardened instantly. That's not fair. He's my boyfriend. If you had someone, I wouldn't tell you they couldn't stay. I reminded her, stay was not the same thing as live here. But she wasn't hearing it. She said I was being controlling and making her choose between me and Tyler. And then she dropped the bomb. Well, if you don't like it, maybe you should move out. I think that's the moment something in me shifted. I pay half the rent. I keep this place clean. I don't make noise at night. And now she's telling me to leave? No. If anyone was leaving, it wasn't going to be me. The morning after Emily basically told me to move out if I didn't like Tyler living there, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I could hear Tyler in the kitchen making that obnoxious throat-clearing sound he did every morning before pouring himself a bowl of cereal. I knew without even checking that it was my cereal. It hit me then. I didn't even feel comfortable leaving my room anymore. My own apartment had become a place I was hiding in. And it wasn't just about space. It was about the principle. I'd agreed to live with Emily. Not Emily and her boyfriend who doesn't parent and eats my food and goes through my stuff ***. I texted my best friend, Kara, who'd heard bits and pieces of my frustrations. Me, I think I'm done. Kara, done like moving out? Me, no. Done like she's going to move out. Kara, oh boy, what happened now? I told Kara everything. How Emily acted like Tyler's housing situation was my problem, how he walked into my room without asking, and how she turned it around like I was the unreasonable one. Kara's response was instant. Kara, that's insane. She can't just move someone in without asking. You're paying rent too. Me, exactly. Kara, so what's your plan? That was the problem. I didn't have one. At least, not yet. I knew legally there was something I could do because Tyler wasn't on the lease. But Emily was, and I didn't know how eviction stuff worked when you were both tenants. I started reading our lease that night. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, ignoring Tyler as he loudly FaceTimed someone while pacing back and forth. The lease was clear. Overnight guests could stay for up to 14 days in a 6-month period without landlord approval. Anything beyond that required both tenants' consent and a written agreement with the landlord. Tyler had been here for 3 months. I felt a little jolt of hope. If I went to our landlord with this, I'd have proof he was violating the terms. But I didn't want to go nuclear right away, partly because I dreaded the awkwardness, and partly because I knew Emily would see it as betrayal. So I tried one more conversation. I caught her in the living room while Tyler was out. She was scrolling on her phone, and I sat on the edge of the couch. Emily, I've been thinking about this a lot. I can't keep living like this. Tyler's here all the time, and it's not what I signed up for. She didn't look up. You're being dramatic. I'm serious. This isn't temporary anymore. He's living here without paying rent, without helping with bills, and she finally set her phone down. You know what your problem is? You don't like Tyler. If you did, you wouldn't care. That's not true, I said. It's about respect and fairness. She rolled her eyes. You think I'm going to kick my boyfriend out to make you happy? That's not happening. So figure something out. I stared at her, my heart pounding. Okay, I said finally. I will. She smirked like she'd won something. But inside, I knew I'd just made up my mind. The next week, I started documenting everything. Every time I saw Tyler's stuff in the apartment. Every piece of mail with his name on it. Every day, he was there from morning to night. I took pictures of his shoes by the door, his laptop on the coffee table, his mail on the counter. Kara called it my roommate receipts. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the apartment got thick. Emily and I barely spoke unless it was about bills or trash day. Tyler, on the other hand, seemed more at ease than ever. Feet on the coffee table, singing while cooking, leaving his hoodies on the back of every chair. One night, I came home to find they'd hosted a full-on dinner party. 6 people around the table, plates everywhere, wine bottles open. No text to me beforehand, no heads up. My chair, the one I used at my desk, was in the living room being used by one of Tyler's friends. I walked straight to my room without saying a word. Emily called after me. You could at least be social. I shut my door. By the end of that week, I'd made an appointment to talk to our landlord, Mrs. Patel. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd always been friendly but firm. I printed out parts of the lease, brought my photos, and explained everything. Her eyebrows rose when I told her how long Tyler had been there. That is not allowed, she said. You both signed the lease. If there's another resident, I need paperwork and rent from them. I asked her what my options were. She said she could send a formal notice that Tyler had to vacate within 10 days, or both of them would be in violation of the lease. 10 days. I felt both relieved and terrified. If I went through with this, Emily was going to be furious. It would basically mean declaring war in our own apartment. I told Mrs. Patel I'd think about it and let her know. That night, as I was brushing my teeth, Emily knocked on the bathroom door. When I opened it, she crossed her arms. So, you went to the landlord? I froze. How do you know that? Her eyes narrowed. Don't worry about it. Just know that if you try anything, you're going to regret it. And that's when I realized she wasn't bluffing. Emily's threat, you're going to regret it, echoed in my head all night. I lay awake staring at the shadow of the ceiling fan blades slowly cutting the streetlight glow into pieces. Every creak in the hallway made me think Tyler was outside my door. Every vibration of my phone made my stomach jump. I didn't answer Kara's text right away because I didn't know how to explain how quickly my home stopped feeling like mine. I opened the lease again, traced the line about unauthorized occupants, and read it until the words blurred. The rule was clear. My fear was also clear. If I pushed this, living here would become a daily fight. If I didn't push it, living here would become a slow erosion of my boundaries until I gave up and left. In the morning, the mystery of how Emily knew solved itself. Mrs. Patel had emailed both of us after my visit, a polite, professional message with the subject line, clarification on guest policy. Emily's reply, sent at 1 in the morning, was short. Tyler is my partner and is here for support. This feels targeted. No hello, no acknowledgement of the actual rule, just a sharp edge wrapped in the word support. When I stepped out to the kitchen for coffee, Tyler was already there. He had a towel slung over his shoulder like a line cook and a pan on the stove. Music thumped from his phone speaker. He turned down the volume when he saw me, but not all the way. Morning, champ, he said, like I'd wandered into his gym. Please don't call me that, I said. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. He flipped something in the pan. Heard you had a little chat with the landlord. He said landlord the way some people say dentist. That's not cool. What's not cool, I said, is living here without being on the lease. He smirked. You have to be careful with accusations. I'm not living here. I'm visiting my girlfriend. He pointed the spatula at the open window. Free country. You've been visiting for 3 months. He shrugged. The universal sign for what are you going to do about it? Want some eggs? No, I said. I want you to follow the rules. I poured coffee. I didn't want just to have something to do with my hands. My jeans felt too tight. My sweater felt too hot. Emily came out right then, hair in a messy bun, oversized sweatshirt swallowing her hands, the posture of someone who had already decided she was the wrong party. She kissed Tyler on the cheek like we were in a play, and she was the lead. Did you seriously CC my boss? She asked. What? I blinked. No. Why would I do that? She waved her phone. Mrs. Patel sent it to the address on file for both of us. I use my work email for everything. Now my manager knows I'm being harassed in my own home. I stared at her. No one is harassing you. She turned her eyes on me. Cool, flat, almost bored. You have a lot of nerve trying to control my relationship. Tyler is here because I need him. You have no idea what I'm going through. What you're going through is a lease you signed, I said. And what I'm going through is paying half the rent for a place that suddenly has a third person eating all the groceries. Tyler laughed. Groceries? Wow. Emily set a mug on the counter, so hard it clacked. If this is about money, say it's about money. Don't pretend you're Mother Teresa of lease agreements. If you're struggling, just say so. Heat rose in my chest. I'm not struggling. I'm asking for basic respect. She rolled her eyes at Tyler. We'll handle it. Her tone said the opposite. We will not handle it in any way that acknowledges you. I went to work shaking with the caffeine I'd barely sipped. The bookstore felt like sanctuary, paper and dust, and the steady rhythm of scanning barcodes. I told my manager, Denise, that my home situation was chaotic and I might be a little distracted. She put a hand on my arm and said, You can shelve in the back if you want some quiet. I almost cried at that small kindness. At lunch, I drafted an email to Mrs. Patel. I thanked her for addressing the policy and said that, given Emily's response, I would like to proceed with the formal 10-day notice for removal of an unauthorized occupant. My finger hovered over send. I thought of Emily's last words at the bathroom door. I thought of Tyler's smirk. I pressed send. When I got home that evening, a sheet of paper was taped to the fridge. In bold letters at the top, house rules. Underneath, 12 bullet points in Emily's rounded handwriting, but with Tyler's voice humming behind the lines. Quiet hours, 11 p.m., 8 a.m. Exceptions for special occasions. Dishes must be washed immediately after use, no exceptions. Shared spaces are for everyone. Personal items left in shared spaces will be moved. No guests without at least 24 hours notice, except partners. Internet password will be changed monthly. Ask for access. Don't confront people before coffee. If food is not labeled, it's communal. No tattling to the landlord. Bathroom time is first come, first served. No complaints about shower length. We are a supportive household, no negativity. Any mess created by pets must be cleaned promptly. We don't have pets. If you move someone's stuff, put it back where you found it. Underneath, in Tyler's sharpest scrawl, we signed to agree. And 2 lines for signatures. I stood there reading the list twice. The mix of silly, don't confront people before coffee, and authoritarian, no tattling to the landlord, made it feel like a prank. But the Wi-Fi line made my stomach drop. Emily handled the bill, but we split the cost, and suddenly access was a weapon. I didn't sign. I took a photo. I texted it to Kara. Kara, this is unhinged. Me, they want me to sign. Kara, do not sign. Me, I didn't. That night, right at 11:05 p.m., Tyler started a movie at full volume. I walked into the living room and said, quiet hours. He turned it down by 1 click and smiled. The next day, a new email from Mrs. Patel, formal notice attached as a PDF, addressed to Emily, with me carbon copied. The language was calm but firm. An unauthorized occupant has been residing in the unit. This is a violation of Section 8C of your lease. Please remedy by vacating the unauthorized occupant within 10 days from the date of this notice, or contact our office to initiate the application process to add the occupant to the lease, subject to approval. Failure to remedy may result in further action, up to and including termination of tenancy. I saved the PDF to a folder called Apartment. I printed 2 copies at work. I slid one under Emily's door. I put the other in my desk drawer like a talisman. The atmosphere that week thickened like soup left too long on low heat. Emily stopped greeting me at all. Tyler greeted me too cheerfully. When I labeled my food, Tyler wrote communal on the sticky notes with a marker. When I left my throw blanket on the couch after a show, it would be folded and placed outside my bedroom door, like they were returning a library book. On day 3 after the notice, I came home and my front door key didn't work. It slid in, turned, and met a new resistance. I eased it back out, tried again. Stuck. I knocked. Tyler opened the door with a grin. Oh, we upgraded the deadbolt. There were break-ins down the block, remember? Gotta be safe. He held up a small black keypad deadbolt with blue lit numbers. He might as well have been holding up a crown. You changed the lock, I said. Upgraded, he said. Don't be dramatic. I'm on the lease. I could hear my voice getting tight. You can't change the lock without giving me a key. Emily came into view behind him, arms folded. Relax. We'll text you the code. That's not the point, I said. You changed the lock without telling me. That's not okay. Tyler leaned on the doorframe. It's fine. You have the code now. I didn't. He hadn't texted anything. I stood there and felt the sting of being outside my own home, relying on their goodwill to step over the threshold. He finally stepped back and let me in. My heart thudded in my throat as I crossed the line into the hallway. An hour later, a text buzzed my phone. From Tyler, front door code, 2580. Don't share. I typed back. Please send me a physical key as well. No response. I called Mrs. Patel. Her voice was low with disapproval. They cannot change locks without landlord authorization or deny you access. I will address it. On day 5, the internet went out. When I asked Emily, she said, "Oh, we changed the password. We'll give it to you when we're all on the same page." The same page about what? I asked. She tilted her head. About not involving Mrs. Patel every time you get upset. So, you're cutting off my internet access because I followed the lease? She smiled without humor. Because you escalated. Actions have reactions. I used my phone hotspot to submit my timesheets and sent Mrs. Patel another email. I kept it factual, locked out, new deadbolt, Wi-Fi used as leverage. I attached photos of the house rules sheet and the new keypad. I hated how much time I was spending turning my life into a case file. On day 6, Tyler taped a sheet of printer paper on the pantry door, shelves, then 3 columns labeled Emily, Tyler, OP. Under mine, one narrow shelf near the bottom. Under theirs, space sprawling like a real estate listing. He caught me looking. Gotta keep things organized, he said. You said you wanted rules. I never said that, I muttered, and put my tea on my one narrow shelf. On day 7, Emily posted a photo on her Instagram story of a cozy dinner for 2, my dining table glowing with candles, plates arranged, a caption that read, "Building a home with you." I stared at it while sitting in my bedroom, eating a microwave burrito off a napkin. Kara called that night. "Come stay with me," she said. "Just for a few nights." "I can't," I said. "If I go, they win. And the 10-day clock is still ticking. Mrs. Patel needs me to hold the line." On day 8, a yellow envelope appeared taped to our door. Notice block letters on the outside. Tyler had drawn a smiley face next to it. Inside, a second copy of the formal notice, this time with a handwritten note from Mrs. Patel. "Please contact me by Friday to confirm compliance." Emily tore it off the door, crumpled it, and tossed it onto the console table. "I'm not living like this," she said to no one in particular, then to me. "You're doing this to punish me." "I'm doing this because you ignored me," I said, voice shaking. "You made a decision for both of us." "You're jealous," she said. "Admit it." I laughed, one sharp sound that surprised even me. "Jealous of what?" "Of me having a relationship," she said softly, like she was unveiling a truth I'd been avoiding. "You hate that you come home to an empty room." I stared at her, 100 responses boiling and none of them helpful. "I hate coming home to find someone who is not on the lease using all the hot water," I said instead. She walked away. Tyler's music got louder. The keypad lock's blue numbers blinked like a tiny lighthouse on a rocky shore. On day 9, another escalation. Tyler's name appeared inside our mailbox. A white label stuck beneath ours, clean font, Tyler J. He had a key. Emily must have given him her copy. They posed in the foyer like they'd bought the building. "Authorized user for utilities now, too," Tyler told me, cheerful. I called and added myself. "So if the internet goes out, I can handle it." "That doesn't make you a tenant," I said. He nodded, like he was agreeing to disagree about gravity. "Feels pretty tenant-y." That night, I pulled up a blank document and wrote a timeline. Dates, screenshots, photos. I made a folder called Utilities and added the email receipts with my half of the payments. I printed a copy of the lease and highlighted the guest policy in yellow. It felt absurd and also necessary, like putting on armor you'd made yourself out of magazine clippings. On day 10, the deadline, I came home a little early to see if anything had changed. The hallway smelled like garlic and fabric softener. The keypad blinked its blue eye. I typed the code, pushed the door, and stopped. The lock turned, but the door didn't move. Something heavy was braced against it from the inside. I pushed harder. Nothing. I knocked. Tyler's voice floated through. "Oh, be right there." Scraping sounds. A thud. More scraping. The door finally opened, revealing a large dresser pushed back against the wall, its bottom corner leaving a fresh scratch on the floor. "What was that?" I asked. "Security," he said lightly. "We thought we heard someone in the hallway trying random codes." No part of that made sense. I stepped past him and saw the living room had changed again. My lamp was gone, replaced by a taller one from a thrift store, and my favorite chair had been squeezed between the TV stand and the window like a misbehaving child. On the counter, another yellow envelope. Unopened. I picked it up and saw Mrs. Patel's handwriting again. Before I could read the new note, Tyler snatched it from my hand, smiling. "Mail's communal now, remember?" "Give that back," I said, and reached for it. He raised it just out of reach, like we were playing a game. "Tyler," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "that notice is addressed to both tenants. I am one of them." He considered me for a second, then put the envelope down and tapped it with 2 fingers. "It says we have options," he said. "We chose one." "What does that mean?" I asked. Emily came out of her room then, hair brushed, makeup on, dressed like she had a meeting. She looked calm. Too calm. We made a decision, she said. We're going to add Tyler to the lease. My heart stumbled. Mrs. Patel has to approve that. She will, Emily said. We sent her Tyler's information and the application fee. There's nothing to worry about. Tyler leaned against the counter. Told you. I'm not going anywhere. My phone buzzed. Email from Mrs. Patel. Application received. Pending review. Pending review. 10 days of escalating hostility followed by a move that anchored him here. I felt my throat tighten. If he got approved, I'd be living with Tyler officially. If he didn't, they'd blame me anyway. I opened Mrs. Patel's email with trembling fingers. The last line punched through the screen. Please be advised that approval is contingent on background screening. Until approved, the unauthorized occupant must vacate. Did you read the last line? I asked. Emily's smile thinned. Tyler's smile didn't. I looked from one to the other, then at the keypad lock still pulsing blue. I realized two things at once. I had enough evidence to push, and pushing might make this explode in ways I couldn't predict. Then my phone buzzed again. Another email, same subject line, from Mrs. Patel, stamped 3 minutes after the first. I clicked it, breath held. The message was shorter this time, and the subject line had changed slightly. Application review, additional information required. There was a single sentence in the body. Please have Tyler contact our office regarding a discrepancy in his rental history. A discrepancy. I looked up at Tyler. He was still smiling, but his fingers had started tapping an impatient rhythm on the counter. Everything good? I asked, my voice sounding far away to my own ears. He shrugged with only one shoulder this time. Totally. It's just paperwork. But I could feel it. The ground under us had tilted a few degrees. And then came the knock at the door. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Not a neighbor. Not a delivery. Tyler and I stared at each other. Emily's gaze flicked to the keypad like she could uninvite whoever was out there by force of will. Tyler walked to the door, hesitated, and pulled it open. Mrs. Patel stood there with a man I didn't recognize and a folder under her arm. She didn't smile. Good evening, she said. We need to talk. And that's when everything in our apartment truly, finally, tipped. If the hallway had been a stage, Mrs. Patel walked onto it like a director about to cancel opening night. She was in her usual cardigan and flats, but the way she held the folder said decision. The man with her wore a jacket with the building management logo and carried a small toolkit. Emily rearranged her features into a friendly expression. Hi, Mrs. Patel. We were just. We'll do this in the living room, Mrs. Patel said, stepping past her. It wasn't rude, it was precise. She scanned the keypad lock as she entered, and the man with the toolkit gave me a quick nod like, don't worry, I saw it too. Tyler put on a conversational tone, that wide smile never quite reaching his eyes. We already sent in my application. We're on top of it. Mrs. Patel opened her folder without sitting. Yes, I received it. This is a notice meeting. You are currently in violation of the lease due to an unauthorized occupant. She said it to the room, but looked at Emily. Until your boyfriend is approved through screening, he cannot reside here. He's not residing here, Emily said. He's visiting. Mrs. Patel flipped a sheet around and slid it onto the coffee table. The top page showed dates in a neat list. Below each were photographs. Tyler's sneakers by the door, Tyler's mail with our address, Tyler's mug on the counter in a dozen different mornings of sunlight. My stomach did a weird twist. I hadn't realized how many proof pictures I'd sent. I suddenly felt exposed, even though the proof was the point. Mrs. Patel didn't soften her tone. Any reasonable person would interpret this as residency. Additionally, I did not authorize a lock change. Her eyes flicked to the keypad. That must be reverted tonight. You will provide both tenants and the management office with keys. Tyler laughed lightly. It's a safety upgrade. You should be thanking me. The man with the toolkit spoke for the first time. Upgrades go through the office, sir. Tenants can't be locked out. Mrs. Patel continued. Furthermore, your application has a discrepancy I need to resolve. We require contact with your previous landlord. Tyler shrugged. He retired. The building's under new management. Then we will contact the new management, she said. Please provide their information by noon tomorrow. Until approval, you may not stay overnight. Emily's eyes flashed. You can't control my relationship. I can enforce the lease you signed, Mrs. Patel said. If this is not remedied, I will issue a cure or quit notice to both tenants. She looked at me then, not warm, but acknowledging. I understand this is difficult. Documenting is appropriate, but I will also require that communal areas remain accessible to both tenants. Her glance traveled to the reconfigured living room. My chair in exile by the window felt like a child who'd been told to eat lunch alone. Understood, I said quietly. Mrs. Patel closed the folder. The lock first, she said to the toolkit man. He moved to the door, and Tyler bristled. You can't just, Tyler began. Mrs. Patel lifted a hand. We can, and we will. This is safety and access. Emily's jaw clenched. This is humiliation. Emily, Mrs. Patel said, gentler now. I am not trying to humiliate you. I'm protecting the unit and both tenants. I need you to hear me clearly. Do not make this worse. The toolkit man removed the keypad efficiently, revealing the old deadbolt still in place beneath. He tested my key. It turned smoothly, a small mechanical relief that loosened a knot between my shoulders I hadn't noticed was there. He made 2 new copies on his portable machine, labeled them, and handed them to me and Mrs. Patel. He offered a third to Emily. She took it like it might bite her. Before she left, Mrs. Patel set a printed letter on the counter. This outlines the timeline. If we cannot approve the additional occupant, he must leave. If he does not leave, we will take further action. Her eyes softened a fraction. I hope we can resolve this like adults. The door shut. Silence expanded where authority had been. Tyler snatched the letter from the counter and scanned it. What if I just stay? He said, like the thought amused him. What are they going to do? Drag me out? Emily put a hand on his arm. Ty, stop. He pulled away. For the first time since this began, I saw a crack. It was small, just a flicker at the corner of his mouth, but it was there. Give them the property manager info, Emily said. We have nothing to hide. He didn't answer. He crumpled the letter, then smoothed it out again. I'll handle it, he said finally, too bright. That night, the apartment rearranged itself again in subtle ways. The keypad was gone, but Tyler found a new theater of control. The Wi-Fi worked, password unchanged, but my access to the hallway outlet mysteriously became blocked by a heavy console table he dragged in from somewhere. A pile of laundry appeared on the couch and stayed there like a pet. The big pot I used for soup went missing. When I asked, Emily said, "It's in our room," and closed the door before I could ask when I would see it again. Still, there was a new force in the mix, a pressure from outside. I clung to that. I stopped avoiding the living room out of habit and started sitting on my chair with a book, even when Tyler was gaming. He kept his headset on and pretended I was furniture. I pretended his friends were the laugh track to a show I didn't watch. On the second morning after the meeting, an email from Mrs. Patel. We have not received the prior landlord's contact. Please provide by noon. At 12:43, another email. No response received. Application paused. At 1:15, I heard an argument through Emily's door, her voice sharp, his muffled. You said, it's complicated, why wouldn't you tell me? Because it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. Then the sound of a drawer slamming. That evening, Emily emerged with a face that looked like she'd practiced looking fine in a mirror. She headed for the door. I couldn't help it. I said, Are you okay? She stopped, shoulders tight. I'm great, she said. Thank you for your concern. She left without a code, even though it had started to rain. Tyler appeared 3 minutes later, saw me, and gave a bland smile. Big day, he said. Did you send the info? I asked. Working on it. He opened the fridge. We're out of eggs. I repeated. I couldn't stop my laugh. Buy some. He looked at me for a long second, then shut the fridge empty-handed. You know, he said softly, there's a reason Emily needed me. Maybe try to be supportive of someone for once. I am being supportive, I said, of both of us having a home that isn't chaos. He shrugged. Agree to disagree. The next morning, a different knock, 2 quick taps, then a pause, then 1 tap. I opened the door to find a woman about my age with a clipboard and an ID badge on a lanyard. Evergreen Residential, Leasing. Hi, she said. I'm looking for Tyler J. for a rental verification. Is he here? He is, I said, because I couldn't pretend otherwise. But I'm not sure. She leaned a little, peered past me into the living room, at the shoes, the packages, the controller on the armrest. Her eyebrows lifted in a flicker of recognition, the kind professionals get when they see a familiar pattern. Could you let him know I stopped by? He hasn't answered calls. Sure. She handed me a card. We're just trying to close the loop on some dates. She picked her words carefully, the way Mrs. Patel did. We like to be thorough. After she left, I stood there a moment with the card in my hand. Evergreen Residential. I Googled them at the kitchen counter. A mid-sized management company with a handful of buildings on the east side. On Yelp, a review from 2 years ago. Beware adding unauthorized occupants. They will catch it. Another review mentioned a Tyler J. by name. Not his last name, just Tyler J. Complaining about insane fees after a roommate bailed. The review was 3 stars, a long rant with weird spacing, and probably not him, but it made my chest feel hollow anyway. I didn't show Emily. I didn't want to turn Google rumors into fuel. I forwarded Evergreen's card to Mrs. Patel with a short note. This person came by. Maybe the discrepancy is that he left a lease early? She replied 5 minutes later. Thank you. We are following up. Then came Saturday night. Emily had texted me earlier, having a few people over. It was the first time in weeks she'd given me any warning, so I appreciated the gesture even as my shoulders rose with dread. A few people turned into 8. They arrived in a drizzle, all sneakers and laughter, and filled the living room with voices. I retreated to my room with tea and a movie on low, telling myself I could ride out a few hours. Through the thin wall, I kept catching pieces of conversation. It's so unfair. We can't catch a break. She's making a case. No, it's not illegal if. At 10, the music got louder, and someone knocked on my door without waiting for an answer. Tyler opened it a sliver. We're doing a toast, he said. You should join us. I'm okay, I said. He held the door a second longer than necessary. Suit yourself. The toast turned into a speech. Emily stood on a chair and thanked everyone for supporting us through this stressful time, and said things like, found family, and home is where you make it. Part of me ached at that language because a different universe existed where we could have been exactly that, found family, if respect had been the baseline. The other part of me counted the bottles piling up and the voices sloshing over each other and thought of the notice on the counter. At midnight, the party thinned. At 1, it was mostly Tyler and 2 of his friends playing a game that involved shouting numbers and slapping the table. At 1:30, I opened my door to use the bathroom and found the hallway blocked by the big console table again, pushed out at an angle. I squeezed by, used the bathroom, and squeezed back. In the living room, the remaining friend looked at me and said, "Hey, roomie." The word hit like a cold cloth. At 2, the apartment was finally quiet. I exhaled. I set my teacup in the sink and felt petty satisfaction at leaving it for the morning. I checked the front door, out of habit now, making sure the deadbolt was turned but not the chain. We didn't have one, and went to my room. At 8 a.m., I woke to pounding. Not at the front door, but on my bedroom door. The kind of pounding that makes you sit up before your mind is awake. Open up, Tyler's voice said. I checked my lock even though I knew I'd turned it. What? Open the door. I opened it an inch with the chain. I had installed a small chain on my room after the charger incident. He stood there, eyes red, one hand braced on the frame, chest forward like he was holding back a wall with his ribcage. What's wrong? I asked, adrenaline snapping me into full wakefulness. Did you go through our room? He said. What? No. Don't lie to me. I tightened my grip on the door. I did not go into your room. He looked down the hall, then back at me. Someone messed with my stuff. What stuff? He inhaled through his teeth. It doesn't matter. Stay out of our room. He stepped back and laughed, a short sound with no humor. You know what? Actually, let's make this official. He turned and walked to the living room. I followed to the doorway of my room, watching. He grabbed a roll of blue painter's tape and a Sharpie from the console table and started putting tape lines on the floor, one at the edge of the hallway, one across the kitchen doorway, one at the end of the bathroom tile. On each piece of tape, he wrote boundary in block letters. I stood there for a second, stunned, then reached for my phone. Kara answered on the first ring. Tell me you're calling to say you're finally coming over, she said. He's putting tape lines on the floor, I said, like a middle school science project. Call Mrs. Patel, she said immediately. Right now. I will. Before I could, a text arrived. From an unknown number. The preview line said, This is Detective L, with Evergreen Residential. My stomach flipped. I opened it. Good morning. I'm assisting Evergreen with a routine tenancy verification. I'd like to ask you a few questions about the length of stay of a Mr. Tyler J. at your address. Are you available for a quick call? I stared at the message. I looked up at Tyler kneeling on the floor, carefully smoothing a line of tape labeled boundary across the tile like he was marking a crime scene. The absurdity and the fear sat side by side in my chest. Yes, I typed back before I could overthink it. I'm available. The phone rang almost immediately. I stepped into my room and shut the door most of the way. Hello. Hi, a calm voice said. This is Detective L with Evergreen's Investigations Unit. We handle fraud related to applications and subtenants. I want to confirm a few dates. I gave factual answers. When did I first see Tyler? When did mail start arriving? How frequently was he present? I kept my voice steady. When we hung up, my hands shook. 2 minutes later, Mrs. Patel's name lit my screen. I answered. She sounded brisk, but there was a current under it. Not quite relief, but something like momentum. Thank you for cooperating, she said. We've received a call from Evergreen. There appears to be a history of unauthorized occupancy at multiple units. I sat down hard on my bed. So what happens now? I will be issuing a cure or quit to both tenants today, she said. I do not do this lightly. If Tyler does not vacate within 3 days, we will begin termination proceedings. 3 days. The number gathered weight as it landed. 3 days to end this. 3 days for Emily to either face reality or lean into stubbornness, so hard we all cracked. Okay, I said. Thank you. When I opened my door, the blue tape lines glared like veins across the apartment. Tyler was at the counter making coffee. He didn't look up. Emily's door was closed. I could hear muffled crying or maybe a podcast. My brain liked the podcast theory more. I stepped over a tape line to get to the sink. Tyler cleared his throat. I turned the faucet on anyway. The water ran loud and ordinary, and for a second I wanted to cry with relief at the sound of a thing doing what it was supposed to do. By noon, the new notice was taped to our door. Cure or quit, 3 days. Beneath it, a copy slid under Emily's door. One leaned against the living room lamp. It felt theatrical, overkill, and also perfect. There was no pretending not to see. At 2, Emily emerged. Her eyes were swollen, and she held the notice like it was made of nettles. You're ruining my life, she said quietly. I'm enforcing the lease, I said. I'm protecting my home. She shook her head. You're not protecting anything. You're just making sure I end up alone. I don't want you alone, I said. I want you respectful. She stared at me, then down at the blue tape. Her socked foot drifted forward and nudged the edge up, rolling it back on itself. She stared at that too, like the tape held a prophecy she was too tired to read. That night, the apartment was a library of small noises. No guests, no music. Tyler moved around like a restless cat. I could feel his friction against the walls. Emily stayed in her room. I sat at the table, my table, and paid my portion of the utilities, then emailed the receipts to Mrs. Patel with a simple note. Paid my share. Not because she needed to see it, but because paper trails felt like tiny fences. At 11, I turned off the hall light. Tyler sat on the couch in the dark, the TV a cold rectangle. You think you won, he said, not looking at me. I think the rules matter, I said. He laughed softly. Rules are for people who can't negotiate. We negotiated, I said. You ignored it. He cut his eyes toward me then, just a flash. 3 days is a long time, he said. Things can change. I shut my door and slid the chain. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood for a second, breathed in, breathed out. I texted Kara, 3 days. She sent back a string of cheering emojis and one knife emoji, then apologized for the knife and sent a heart. I laughed into the quiet. On day 1, Tyler was out most of the afternoon. On day 2, he was home and intensely helpful. He washed dishes, vacuumed the living room, organized a pile of magazines. He made a show of it, narrating his contribution. Just being a good housemate, he said lightly when I passed. I kept my mouth closed. I could feel the performance aimed down the lens of Emily's hope. That evening, Emily knocked on my door. I opened it, and she surprised me by stepping back, giving me space. Can we talk? She asked soft. We sat on the edge of my bed like middle schoolers getting ready to whisper secrets. She twisted her fingers together. I know this has been awful, she said. I know I messed up. She blinked hard. He says he's fixing it. He says the company has a vendetta against him because of a misunderstanding with his last place. He says if you would just tell Mrs. Patel it's okay, they'll let him stay until the lease renewal, and then we can all figure it out. I can't, I said. Even if I wanted to, I can't put my name on something that makes this normal. She nodded, tears starting again. I don't want to lose him. I don't want to lose you, I said, and realized I meant it. The version of Emily I'd lived with before Tyler existed in there somewhere. But I can't live like this. I know, she whispered. We sat in the quiet for a long time. The hallway clock ticked. Outside, a car alarm chirped and then thought better of it. On day 3, noon came with a new knock. This time, when I opened the door, Mrs. Patel was alone. She looked tired but resolute. We're proceeding, she said. If he isn't out by 5 today, I'm serving the termination. 5. The number curved like a hook in the air. At 4:30, Tyler came in carrying a duffel bag. He dropped it with a thud. Going to Sean's for a few days, he announced to the room. To show good faith. A rush of air left my body. Relief. Suspicion. Both. Okay, I said. He looked at Emily, and something passed between them, a silent handshake of plan. He kissed her temple. Back soon, he said. At 4:50, Mrs. Patel appeared in the hallway like a timer with shoes. She glanced at the duffel. Are you leaving? Tyler slung the strap over his shoulder. For a couple days. Thank you, she said crisply. Please do not return overnight until approval or alternative arrangements are in place. Emily, I'll expect to hear from you by noon tomorrow regarding his status. Emily nodded. Tyler walked out. The door closed. The apartment exhaled. The quiet felt like when a storm stops pounding the windows but leaves the air electric. At 5:12, my phone buzzed. Kara, celebratory ice cream? I smiled and typed back, yes. I grabbed my keys. I stood at the door, hand on the knob, and paused. The feeling that I'd forgotten something tugged at me. I scanned the room. Stove off, windows latched, lamp off. I shrugged, opened the door, and stepped into the hallway. The elevator dinged. I pressed the button and stared at my reflection in the brushed metal doors. Hair in a messy ponytail, sweater too big, the face of someone who might finally sleep. The elevator doors opened. And there, leaning against the back wall like he owned the building, was Tyler. The duffel bag sat by his feet. He smiled big and bright, the way people do when they've been waiting to deliver a line. Forgot my charger, he said. Except the hair on my arms lifted because his hands were empty. There was no charger in them. There was something else, though, a silver key dangling from his index finger. Our front door key. He twirled it once, slow. You should be more careful with your spare keys, he said conversationally. People might start thinking you're careless. The elevator was still open. The hallway behind me felt suddenly long. I didn't move. He stepped forward, still smiling. Don't worry, he said softly. I'm a good housemate. He walked past me toward the apartment. And just like that, the idea of gone for a few days evaporated like a puddle in sun. I didn't move. The elevator doors closed behind me with a soft thunk, leaving me in the hallway staring at the spot where Tyler had just stood. He was already at the door, sliding the key into the lock with casual precision, like this was his victory lap. Inside, I heard Emily's voice lift in surprise. You're back already? Tyler replied something low and quick. Her tone changed, sharper, questioning, but I couldn't make out the words. My phone was already in my hand. I typed. He's returned with a key. Mrs. Patel's reply came almost instantly. Stay outside. I'm on my way. I leaned against the wall, pulse in my throat, trying to ignore the muffled sounds from inside. My mind kept circling the same question. How did he get that key? Had Emily made a copy before the lock change? Did he take it from my room? Every possibility made my skin crawl. 5 minutes felt like 30. The hall smelled faintly of someone's cooking, garlic and butter, but it was hard to notice over the metallic tang of adrenaline in my mouth. When the elevator finally opened again, Mrs. Patel stepped out, toolkit man at her side. She gave me a short nod, her face unreadable. Is he inside? She asked. Yes, I said. Mrs. Patel didn't waste a second. She knocked once, hard enough to echo, and then used her master key. The door swung open to reveal Tyler halfway through saying something to Emily. He turned, smile already forming. Mrs. Patel, No, she said, cutting him off with the authority of someone who had no time for theater. You are not an approved tenant. You have been instructed to vacate. You are in violation of this lease, and you have re-entered with an unauthorized key. Tyler's smile faltered. I live here. You do not, she said. Pack your things now. The locksmith moved to the door immediately, pulling tools from his bag. Tyler's voice rose, but Mrs. Patel didn't flinch. You can argue from outside, or you can leave quietly now. Those are your options. Emily stood behind him, arms crossed tight. She looked like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find the right words. Tyler muttered something under his breath, grabbed the duffel from the floor, and walked past me without looking at my face. When the door closed behind him, Emily retreated to her room without a word. I could hear her crying through the door, muffled, like she was trying not to be heard. I felt conflicted. Relieved, yes, but also sad for the friendship we'd completely lost. Mrs. Patel handed me a fresh key, the metal still warm from the cutting machine. Document everything, still, she said. If there's any further attempt to re-enter, call me immediately. The next morning, I woke to a short text from Emily. I'll be moving out by the end of the month. No apology. No explanation. The rest of the month passed in a kind of quiet I'd almost forgotten existed. We barely spoke. Tyler didn't come back, at least, not while I was home. I stopped locking my bedroom door during the day. I started leaving my blanket on the couch again. When moving day came, I stayed in my room while Emily and a couple of friends carried her boxes out. I didn't want a final confrontation. By the time I emerged, her key was sitting on the counter, her side of the fridge was empty, and the faint scent of her perfume was fading from the hallway. The apartment felt enormous without her things. More space than I remembered, like the walls had shifted. I walked from room to room just to feel the echo of my own footsteps. That night, I ordered my favorite takeout and ate it on the couch with a blanket over my legs. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was clean, like fresh air after a storm. Kara came over with a bottle of wine, and we toasted to peace and quiet. I thought about the version of this story I'd wanted, one where Emily and I stayed friends and solved things without scorched earth. But this ending, imperfect as it was the one I needed. And for the first time in months, I slept without my door locked.